Hello and welcome to the final week of the Loft's virtual wordplay. My name is Caitlin Bolin and I am the Individual Giving Director at the Loft. We're so glad you're here. We hope that during the challenges of COVID-19 that this little corner has been a place of respite and creative inspiration for you. As you may know, when we began planning Wordplay, our intention was to have 100 authors and 10,000 visitors celebrating books in downtown East Minneapolis. Well, with a quick and thoughtful pivot, we have loved the opportunity to engage with you at home, bringing you conversations with today's top authors on conversation topics across the spectrum. Because you have shown up for us, we've reached over 40,000 viewers across the country. We are so grateful to provide all of our wordplay sessions to you free of charge, and that is due in large part thanks to the forward-thinking generosity and leadership of our sponsors, and especially our founding partners, St. Catherine University and Star Tribune. We would not be here without them. And while their support has gotten us this far, we turn to you, our dear virtual audience members, to bring us to the finish line. This week, as Minnesota raises funds as part of hashtag GiveAtHomeMN, and as we celebrate hashtag Giving Tuesday Now across the U.S., we ask you to please consider including the Loft in your giving plans. Your gift of any size allows readers and writers to continue to receive support through classes, fellowships, events, challenging conversations, and more, all at the Loft. And your donation will automatically make you one of our fantastic members. We hope you will support us as we support the literary community. Thank you for all you do for the Loft, and enjoy Wordplay.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Loft Wordplay's final installment of Uncharted Territory featuring Claire Comstock-Gay. Today you are in for a real treat because we get to talk to Claire herself about her amazing new book, Madame Clairevoyant's Guide to the Stars, Astrology, Our Icons and Our Selves. My name is Abby Frank Taylor. Yes, there's a beautiful book. My name is Abby Frank Taylor and I work here at the Loft. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsors, St. Catherine University and Star Tribune. They have made this virtual wordplay happen, and so we are so grateful to them. We also want to thank Ryan Reed's, Ryan Companies, Project Ryan Reed's, who have been sponsoring all of our kids programming. You can check all of our kids programming out with some extra educational opportunities at loftwordplay.org. All of these wordplay events have been free, but if you want to continue to support the Loft, you can do so by clicking the button below. If you make a gift today or tomorrow, it will be matched up to $1,000, and we are $65 away from our match goal. So we are so close. So help support the Loft, push us over that finish line, and double your impact. Any amount matters. So thank you so much. The Loft does our amazing work. Thanks to our amazing members. So thanks to all of you who have already given. Also at that button, you can buy a copy of Claire's book from our friends at Majors and Quinn, which you absolutely should because it is a delight. And on that note, I'd love to open it up and welcome Claire. Claire Comstock-Gay is the author of Madame Clairevoyant's Guide to the Stars, Astrology, Our Icons and Our Selves, and her writing appears weekly in New York Magazine's The Cut. She has written about astrology in the New York Times and appeared on NPR's On Point. She is a member of the National Writers Union, UAW Local 1981, and lives in St. Paul. Claire, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for talking to me today, Abby.
Yes. I am so grateful to be talking to you and so grateful for your book. It has been such lovely company in this time, so thank you for that. I would love to start by giving people a little bit of an insight into your book. So could you give us a short reading?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's good. Your face was frozen for a long time, and now you're back.
Good, surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, so usually I read from the introduction for the book, but we just had a big Scorpio full moon yesterday, so I'm going to read the beginning of the Scorpio chapter. The scene. It's Scorpio season, 2004, and to the delight and anxiety of seemingly everyone in my hometown in New Hampshire, the Boston Red Sox have made it to the World Series. This will eventually be the year that the Red Sox finally break the curse that has kept them from winning a World Series since 1918, but nobody knows that yet. For now, there's just a buzz of anticipation in the air. The hallways at school are filled with kids in full Sox gear. Strangers talk about it in restaurants and stores. The local paper runs frenzied human interest stories about sick and elderly people hanging on to life by the frayed thread of hope that they'll finally see Boston win. But not me. I'm 16, equal parts pretentious and insecure, and I know that I don't ever want to reach the end of my life with no passion more powerful than my love for a sports team. It's only been a few years since I started to really learn how blithely people in authority are willing to lie to themselves and each other. The Iraq War at this point is only a year and a half old, and what seems to me to be clearly, undeniably wrong is being neutralized and normalized, glossed over with yellow ribbon car magnets and support our troops signs, even in the basically liberal city where I live. Patriotism feels newly poisonous, and I have a sense that if only I can find it, the world holds something sharp and true and better than this. Nobody around me seems to have anything approaching an answer, but the people who appear to at least have a method for looking are the artists, the rebels, and the punks. So on the night of Game 1 of the World Series, my friends and I are in Boston too, not to see the baseball game, but to see our most beloved electro-punk band, La Tigra, play a show at a venue that's behind Fenway Park. From the top of the street where our friend's dad drops us off, the crowd splits neatly into two distinct streams of people. On the right, walking toward Fenway, are the Boston sports fans in red and navy Sox clothes, loud and drunk, among the most cartoonishly terrifying of America's jocks. On the left, a thinner stream of people, in combat boots and asymmetrical haircuts, moves toward the show, and we slip in among them. Under the stadium lights across the street, the sportsgoers will soon hear Steven Tyler perform the national anthem. In the dark club, we will hear Kathleen Hanna, a Scorpio, insult President George W. Bush, and sing a song calling New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani such a fucking jerk. And my heart will swell with the feeling that at last an adult is telling me the truth. Not just the literal truth. Plenty of adults in my life also believed the war was wrong, but the angry emotional truth of it too. The war is wrong, and the people in power don't care about you. And Giuliani is such a fucking jerk. While there's nothing exactly radical about being a white 16-year-old yelling in a concert venue instead of in a baseball stadium, although at the time I thought there probably was. Punk shows still opened a door to a depth and provocative courage I might never have found anywhere else. Punk singers like Kathleen Hanna modeled what it could look like to get angry at the state of the world and to take control of that anger and use it to tell the truth. Scorpio occupies a place in the zodiac similar to this place punk occupies in the music world. And I don't say that just because I went to one La Tigra show. Both offer provocation and secrets and sharp edges, a willingness to disturb the peace. At their very best, both offer an intensity that refuses superficiality and refuses to be placated by appearances. Both offer the courage to look directly into the world's darkness and not run from what is found there. Stop there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you read that section because I feel like it's such a great representation of what your book does, which is take all of these sort of lofty and starry ideas and bring them into really concrete life experiences. So thank you for that. I would love to, if you could, give us a basic definition of astrology and what a star chart is for those viewing who might be new to this, and maybe what your signs are too.
Oh, sure. So kind of at its most basic, right? Astrology is kind of a system for seeing how, how we are connected to the movements of the planets above us, the stars and the planets. It's not necessarily causal, right? It's not like, here's how the planets are affecting us. It's more kind of a study of the linkages between us, I guess. And so a star chart, right, is a map of the position of the planets at any one point in time. So what we use it most often for is, like, at the moment of your birth, your chart is the map of exactly where all the planets were arrayed among the stars at that moment. And so my signs, right, you have signs for each one of the planets was in one of the constellations when you were born. The major three ones are your sun, your moon, and your rising sign. And so I'm Sagittarius, sun, Capricorn, moon, Cancer, rising.
Great. Thank you. And you haven't always been a believer in astrology, and you talk about this a little at the beginning of your book. What converted you from a non-believer into Madame Clairevoyant?
Yeah, really, like, my early experiences with astrology really left me cold. And a lot of that was because the descriptions for Sagittarius, which is my sun sign, were like so far off from anything that I experienced to be true about myself, right? The basic Sagittarius descriptions are all about this, like, kind of cheerful, like, excitable jock of a person, kind of, right? And I was such a moody, sad teenager that those descriptions just felt horrible. And so it really took learning that there was more than just the sun sign, right? Specifically for me, it was learning that my rising sign was Cancer, which is, like, precisely the sign of the moody teenager. And suddenly, right, it kind of felt like it maybe had something to say about me that was accurate and useful to me.
You've talked with a handful of our Wordplay authors the past few weeks about the way their star charts are reflected in their creative process or in the work itself. Do you see that in your own signs and your own process and what this book turned out to be?
Yeah, I think, it's funny in a lot of ways. I know there are other astrologers, I think, who right, really use astrology to, like, plan things ahead of time, to, like, right, think through things. For me, it's kind of always and only reflecting back on things, right, that I see what might have been happening, or that I can see more clearly what has happened through astrology. Right, so as I'm writing, I never think, oh, this is the astrological thing that I'm going to do. Right, but it's always looking back that I can see how it played a part.
One of the things I really love most about your book is that you're using astrology as a lens to better understand ourselves and find self-acceptance and understand how we are navigating in this world. Why was that so critical to you as you were writing this book? I feel like that's something really unique about your writing, and I see that in your weekly horoscopes too. It's really focused on the emotional landscape and how we can find ourselves that way.
Yeah. I think it was important for me to have that kind of be at the center of this book, because it really is at the center of everything that astrology does for me. Right. And that's not to say that I think that's what astrology is all about, right? People use it for all kinds of different things. But for me, like, the times that it's been really useful is where it kind of has helped me to have more compassion for myself. And then also for other people. Right. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that I've kind of felt most shame about in my life, I've been able to deal with that by like astrology kind of sets up this whole world where everything is just a normal part of being human, right? There's no like defective personalities. There's just these different hands of cards that we've all been dealt, and we can all figure out our own way to like deal with the landscapes that we're in. And so to not feel shame, like, oh, this part of me is so awful, like, and shouldn't be there. But, oh, this part of me is just what's there and it's fine. Right. And so that's kind of been the whole point of astrology for me. And so what else, I guess, to put in my book, right? But that important thing that I've found for myself.
Right. Yeah, I think your book does a great job of showing why we need each of the signs and why it's sort of like a cast of characters, right? They don't really exist without the other, and they're unable to be full selves without the others. And I think that's really special and something that you can take outside of your book as well, even if you don't believe in astrology, which I definitely am more of a believer now after reading your book. That's such a beautiful thing to be able to take away and take out into the world with us. So one of the things that's also really great about your book is that you are using all of these celebrities and icons and iconic moments in art history to examples for what these signs are. I'd love to know, were you always a pop culture enthusiast? Is that more from research from your book? What was your research process like for that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination. I'd say maybe half of the things in the book I kind of knew starting out that I wanted to fit in if I could. On the other half maybe were things, right, where I was kind of thinking about a theme and digging for people or moments or like artworks that would illustrate that theme. I have this very like long and full spreadsheet that I've been keeping for a few years, where like every single time I think, oh, like what is Agatha Christie's sun sign? And I look it up and it's Virgo, and I go on my chart and just add her to the name of the Virgo list, right? Or like, oh, I wonder what John Waters is. Oh, he's a Taurus. Great, put him on the list. Right, so like any person, any artist, any person I think of, I keep track on this list. And so when I started writing this book proposal, right, a lot of the initial work was digging through this list and looking for kind of echoes or themes or ways to clump different people together that would be illustrative and interesting.
Is that just how you sort of move through the world? Like, are you always looking at or thinking about what people's signs might be?
It's funny. I used to not do that at all. And I think in large part, even after writing the horoscopes for many years, writing this book really has like set up certain, just my brain little like Virgo detector going off now, right?
Amazing.
And I think, I try not to do it too much. I think a lot of the people who hate astrology, right, they really don't like this idea that people are like constantly moving through the world trying to shove you into some astrology box or like make some kind of conclusions about you just because of astrology, right? Like that's not helpful, I think, in real life.
Right.
But it's just, yeah.
It's a foundation. It's a place to start. I have to say one of my favorite parts of your book was, I think it was in the, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I think we're having a little bit of an internet lag, but
yeah.
I was just going to say one of my favorite parts of your book, I think it was in the Gemini section, was when you were using Mary-Kate and Ashley as your like cultural source for how to describe the Gemini personality, and it was just such a treat. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh yeah, no, and I'm sorry about the internet lag. I was just saying how good the tech has been this whole time, and of course, the last one.
Right at the end, second to last event, we've got a slight lag in conversation, but that's all right. We'll take it.
But I think the thing
What?
about like paying attention to people's signs in the world is I think part of what turns people off so much is we've got these really rigid definitions of what the signs are all about and use that to kind of color your judgment of people in the world. I think it's a lot more useful and a lot more, I don't know, healthy even, to take people as they are and let that inform your understanding of the signs, right? So using the people first and then the astrology versus the astrology as the primary, primary filter.
Right. I think that segues. You asked this question of all of your authors, so I'm curious for you. You definitely are. You prioritize highlighting both the strengths and weaknesses of each of the signs, and there is no such thing as a bad sign. But is there a sign that you don't have on your chart that you identify with, or that maybe before you researched all of this, you wished you were?
Yeah. I feel like, and I think this is a little bit of a stereotype, especially for like artists or writers or creative people, right? But I always was really drawn to the water signs, right? Like the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, who are, like intuitive and really emotionally aware of the world, and really kind of like Pisces always gets called like the psychic sign, and I was always like, oh, I want to be the psychic sign so bad. I always
pretty cool. Like, who wouldn't want to be a psychic sign?
Right. I think more recently I've felt myself really drawn to the earth signs, and I don't have very much earth sign energy in my chart. Right, but maybe it's part of getting older, or maybe it's just personal to me, right? But it's like, these are the signs who really can get it done in the real world, right? They're the ones who kind of know how to make things happen and know how to live in ways that are tangibly useful. And it's like, oh, I want some of that, right? Versus just feelings and like, I want to be useful in the world.
Yeah, some like grounded energy. I feel that too. I feel like I've always been envious of the earth signs. Well, because you have this like lexicon of pop culture and astrology and how they relate, are there any movies or books or TV that you've turned to in this time for guidance? And if you know their signs, cool. But
okay, well, so I've got one frivolous answer and one like bummer of an answer. So the frivolous fun answers that I've been watching. Yeah. So the frivolous answer is that I've been watching Frasier on Netflix, and it's just like the greatest, silliest sitcom ever, right? And I don't know what anybody's real signs are on that, but I do have a very like well thought through personal opinion about what all the characters' signs are. I think Frasier is clearly a Leo. Dad is a Taurus. Niles is a Virgo.
That's perfect.
And my bummer answer is so for reading, I've been reading, one of my favorite writers is the Belarusian journalist and oral historian Svetlana Alexievich, who I think is just a genius. And she writes about, these moments of like horrible historical trauma and suffering in the Soviet Union. she is a Gemini, right? And Gemini is the sign of like the twins and kind of curiosity and multiplicity and duality in your thinking. And what I really love that she does, right? Like her voice doesn't even show up in these books at all. She just talks to hundreds of people and lets them tell their stories in the books. And it's not comforting exactly, right? But there's something really nice about just reading these people's experiences of awful moments in history.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like we all have our frivolous and bummer of an answer right now, or whatever equivalent of that is, to cope with the times that we're living in. And I guess that leads me to my last question. Have you been using astrology at all in this time to, I don't know, turn to for guidance or look to for thoughts? I don't know how that works as far as like moments in time outside of like our own personal signs. So if I'm asking a totally nutty question, you can tell me, but how has that been a tool in this pandemic to process?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because it's definitely, there's a whole like school of astrology that's all about, right? Like what I do is called like psychological astrology, right? And that's kind of what like the average layperson would think of. But there's also all of these ways to use astrology to kind of predict or make sense of big world events in addition to just our personal lives. And funnily, I guess like that doesn't do anything for me, right? Like I don't pay attention to the big world transits. Yeah, I don't know why my brain just rejects it kind of. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find anything to make sense of times like these too, I think. So but I will say I've so enjoyed reading your book in this time. I feel like that introspection is what we have time for right now, whether that's a gift or a curse. So I was really grateful to have your book to sort of guide me through that. So if you're listening, you should get your hands on a copy. You can buy it at the button below from our friends at Majors and Quinn. It's so good and so moving. I was so surprised by how emotional your book made me. It just felt really special. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's all we have time for today. So I want to say thank you again to you, Claire, not only for doing this talk with me today, but for having this weekly segment. It has been such a treat to experience these authors through a new lens and their work. So thank you for the work you did for that and for all of those amazing conversations. And thank you to our sponsors, St. Catherine University and Star Tribune. Again, buy Claire's book at Majors and Quinn, support indie bookstores, support our authors. You can also support the Loft. Today and tomorrow, if you make a gift to support the Loft's work, it will be matched up to $1,000. And I think we're really close if we're not there already. So please support us. You can do that at the button below too. We are almost to the end of virtual wordplay. We've got one more class tonight, one more class tomorrow, and our last event is tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central. And it's role models. So bring your kids, bring your moms. We'll celebrate the weekend and celebrate the end of virtual wordplay. So thank you so much, Claire, and have a good one, everyone.